Hey folks, welcome to your weekly video. So last week we looked at how to make and translate, right, research that we've done onto a poster, right? How to present any work that we've done at the college to show off, right, if you want to go all the way, to show off your research at the LW Tech Research Symposium. And the deadline for that is in a couple weeks, right? So again, check out that link to the Applied Research Symposium. So we really worked on, okay, can you take um, a research project that we've done in this class or any class at LW Tech, and can you translate it and visualize it onto a poster, right? And that's what the Research Symposium is all about. It's showing off the work that you've done, networking, and then using that for cover letters and resumes, and really just building off of that. So that was last week, right? Visualizing, right, the research that we've done. And you can use your music therapy paper, right? You guys did a lot of great research. So can you visualize, right, the work that you did, right? What was your hypothesis? What did you set out to find? What was your claim, right? What was your conclusion? What does it mean? What's the importance of that? What's the so what of, let's say you argued for using grunge in music therapy. Well, Seattle's the home of grunge, right? So it would go over well in this community, in this town, right? So that could be part of your conclusion and so what, and how does this affect this place? So feel free if you want to use that music therapy research for your poster or anything that you've done at the college. Okay, so that was last week. And so this week, I want to get into our final type of claim. So let me pull up this is under 6 types of claims. We've looked at the different claims so far in this class. We've looked at the they say, I say method, right? These researchers say this, but I say something else, or I agree, but. So now, right, we want to get into utilizing all of the claims that we've looked at. So we've looked at claims of definition, right? I define, grunge music therapy as music therapy that is local and geographically specific, right, to the Pacific Northwest. Okay, you just changed our minds about grunge music therapy, right? Or a claim of value, right? Music therapy is really valuable for young folks, but also for veterans or folks in nursing homes, right? Those populations aren't normally considered for music therapy. Or a claim of cause, right? What's causing sort of more of a need for therapy across the world? Or a claim of comparison, right? I'm going to compare sort of hip hop therapy to nature sounds or emo or K-pop or grunge, right? And look at the different populations that might utilize that, or the different age groups or generations. So now I want to get into claim of policy, right? This is a really powerful claim, right? What should we do about a social issue? How should we act as a society, as a state? What should state policy be? What should federal policy be? So I want to make this really small and fun. So I want to talk about making claims of policy for things in our community, right? What do we want to see? How do we want to change our community? So those are the types of claims. Let me go on the assignment for next week. So I'm asking us to create a simple proposal, right? A simple claim of policy for something that you want to see in your community that improves your community, right? Socially, economically, ecologically, right? What in your community can you envision being even better, right? So we'll look at a lot of examples of this in a second. So, and we're going to use, well, I'll just slow down, and we're going to use DALL-E to help us visualize part of this. But I want to start with the writing component of this, right? So I want you to use at least one source, right? You can use a newspaper, a credible newspaper, or Google Scholar. And for example, if you want to write about, like gentrification is, the pros and cons, or it's negatively affecting my community, find an article on gentrification. on The Economist or the LA Times or the Seattle Times or Google Scholar, and that can help be your source for this proposal, right? That could be under, you could use that source to help you define a problem, right? Is gentrification a problem? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it both, right? So you could bring that source in to help you address a problem in your community, right? We have to find a problem. And that's what the policy or the proposal will address, right? I'm in Columbia City. There's this sort of upswell of gentrification. The neighborhood is changing, maybe too fast, right? A lot of people are unhappy. So I could easily bring in a Seattle Times article on the pros and cons of gentrification, right? And write my proposal about my community of Columbia City. So then I want to come up with a solution, right? Do we need more, if I'm talking about gentrification, it being a problem, right? Do we need to slow things down? Do we need to make more, like less new boxy apartments and just sort of use the available architecture we have and just refurbish and recycle rather than make new things, right? Like I could talk about that as my policy. Think of it this way too. Your audience for this is the Seattle Design Festival, the Seattle Bellevue Department of Construction, the Urban Design Forum. These are all sort of urban agencies in this area that support sort of ideas for changing the urban landscape, right? So think of it as you're writing to them, right? You're requesting, to make a change in your community, right? You have an idea to add something, right? If you're on the LW Tech campus, is there a bike lane? Sometimes I look for it and I'm like, where is it? So, right, it can be really small, right? Something like a bike lane or something like, let's slow down gentrification. Let's, instead of tearing down old buildings, reuse and recycle older buildings rather than build new big box apartments. So that's what I mean that's what I mean by making a claim of policy, right? What should exist, right? And start with your local community, okay? Look around. What do you see that you think could be improved through public policy? I give a great sort of structure for your proposal. This should be about 1 to 2 pages, right? So you start by defining the problem or the opportunity addressed by your proposal. Let me give you another example. I took this photo of my apartment building, and there's just been this dead space built into the apartment building. It's supposed to be a retail space eventually, but it's been sitting empty for like almost a year. So I used DALL-E, which is an AI generator we'll look at in a minute. And I was able to fill in that space with a public community theater, right? Or I could do like a children's theater, puppetry theater, whatever. But that is sort of the essential idea behind my proposal, right? There's a problem, right? There's this empty space, right? And then there's the solution. Okay, let's fill it with community theater, right? The pandemic sort of decimated the arts in this town. So I want to bring back more arts and theater and plays and puppetry, right? And bring the community, knit the community back together, right? So I started with a perceived problem and a proposed attempted solution. So think of that as that's what we're doing in writing. So define the problem, right? Be it gentrification or dead space or a lack of, a safe bike lane or an unsafe street that needs a roundabout, right? And then go into your solution. Well, what's going to improve the community, right? A roundabout, a bike lane, a theater, what, right? A Japanese garden, what, right? And then talk about the feasibility, the benefits of implementing that. Give a short description of what will it take to make that, right? Cost, labor. I looked up sort of like rents in my neighborhood, right? The rent for like a small retail space would be like $4,500 a month. So that would go sort of in my project description. and any potential obstacles or barriers, right? So, why did I choose this and not something else, right? Why not a grocery store? Why not a library? Why not a post office, right? So I have to go into, well, there are other logical, reasonable things to go in that space. But I, argue that a community theater, right, it's nonprofit. Um, we have a lot of grocers or food in Columbia City, but the arts have really suffered. So instead of a retail space or a for-profit space, we need a nonprofit space, right? We need an art space and culture for the community. Um, so that's the writing component, right? You'll do the introduction, and you can think of these as paragraphs, right? Your first paragraph is the introduction and background to the problem, and then your second paragraph is the your policy solution, right? What do you think is going to improve that area or part, right? And just go through 1, 2, 3, 4, answer those questions. So that's the textual written part of this assignment. And in the next part of this video, I'll go over, there's also a visual part to this assignment. But I would start with, right, the textual. Like, notice something in your community or your area that, maybe has always bugged you or bothered you. Or you're like, there's a lot of gentrification. Or, that street has never been really safe and there's a school there, so that's not really safe for kids, right? Like, and then, right, problem identified, and then what is a solution? Okay, part 2 of the video is coming next.